Everyone, happy Sunday. Welcome to week 8, October 23rd to 27th of our course. So we are flying through. I can't believe we're looking at the end of October already. This week is pretty simple in that it's a continuation from what we discussed in our instructional video from last week, in that you're going to be finishing up that assignment from last week on the managerial theories, and you've got your unit test. So I referred to this last week in your instructional video, but I'm just going to spend a bit of time today in our instructional video for this week talking about the expectations of the unit test. But when you look at the weekly agenda, our focus this week is on finishing up that management theories assignment. And again, last week you were given that assignment last Sunday. So you've been given essentially 11 days to work through this assignment. It is due on Thursday, October 26th, no later than 3 p.m. in Dropbox. So again, I know I mentioned it in the instructional video last week that normally our assignments are due on Mondays at 8 a.m., but sometimes throughout the course, depending on sort of when that assignment falls or how large it is, I'll give you extra time. So again, my expectations are higher in circumstances like that. And as I mentioned last week as well, it would be expected that you would have started this last week, but you do have until Thursday at 3, and it is due at 3. That's a hard deadline, okay? Make sure that you're copying the link as your submission and that I have editing privileges on that Google document. Additionally, this week you have your unit test, okay? So there's one last lesson that we haven't covered yet. It's the 21st century management lesson, where they talk about managerial competencies. So you'll need that content and that knowledge as well for the unit test. So do make sure that you go through this slide deck and continue to take really good course notes, because you'll see that the content from this lesson is also on the unit test. Okay, so that's the one last lesson of Unit 1. And then we have our unit test. Now, in this course, unit tests can be written anytime during the week in which it is assigned. So there's not a designated period of time that you have to write the test this week. You just have to choose with your schedule a 90-minute period where you can sit down and write this test. And it has to be done between now, so Sunday at 8 p.m., and the following Monday at 8 a.m. So obviously, with our schedule, Monday would be Monday, October 30th at 8 a.m. So if you don't write the test before next Monday, then you lose your opportunity to write the test, because you have the entire week to choose when writing the test works for you and your schedule. And you can write it on the weekend. You can write it next Saturday at 5 p.m. from your home. That's totally fine. It just has to be done within a 90-minute period sometime this week. So with that being said, when you open up the unit test, once you open the test, that is the 90-minute period begins. You can't leave the test and come back to it, okay? You do have 90 minutes to write the test. That's a little bit longer than you would have in a regular classroom, but that's because the test, there are some higher expectations with that. If you have an IEP where you are hopeful that you can have some extra time, that's no problem. Just send me an email. I do have to set that up in the system on the back end. So we just want to make sure that you have what you need, because I'm not always accessible in that moment, especially if it's on the weekend when you're writing the test. So just make sure that you send me an email as soon as possible, and I will set that up for you on the back end. Okay. With the unit test, it is in Dropbox. So it is in Brightspace. Sorry about that. I always do that. So if you go into our classroom, actually, I'll just open it up from a different way. If you go into our classroom online and you go to access the test, you just have to click on assessments and quizzes, and it will be listed as Unit 1 test. Okay. Additionally, if you're on the course homepage, you'll see that I've linked it into the activity feed, a direct link, and you can always find it along here as well for upcoming events. So I've prepared a unit test review sheet for you. It's pretty basic. Really, again, because you're in grade 12, it's expected that throughout this course, and I know I've said it like a broken record, you've been expected to take notes. Right? You should have a Google form or a Google sheet somewhere, Google document, or paper that you can write your notes on. You should have been doing that with every slide deck, video, article that you've covered in Unit 1. You should have notes that are done. Okay. If you haven't done that, I don't know how to say this without coming across as rude, but like that's your responsibility as a grade 12 academic student. You're going to have a really hard time when it comes to assessments, tests, exams, in this course, but really in any academic course. Okay. Now, the benefit to keeping great course notes is this. Listen, one of the most common questions asked for e-learning when you're writing tests is like, can I use notes? Of course, you can use your notes because you're in your home and I'm not there. If it were me, I would have my incredibly well-written notes that I've been taking throughout the whole unit in front of me. But what I will say is this, students that do not study and they rely on their notes for the test always run out of time. Always. And then their tests are not done very well, okay, because they're searching for the answers while they're writing their test and they are not formulating their answers properly because they don't have the knowledge, okay? The questions that will be asked of you in this test, outside of the multiple choice, to be fair, are application-based questions. So you're going to be given a situation and you have to apply your knowledge from the course. So like, here's a situation. What management theory would you use and why? And how would you use it? So you're going to have to show me that you understand the content, that you know the content of the course, right? And that you're making decisions from a leadership perspective that apply the learning from the course. Okay. The only way that you can do that effectively is if you do review that material. So I would have those course notes. I would have written really great course notes throughout the whole unit. I would review those notes and then I would have them in front of me, but I would really like study those notes so that I felt prepared as though I was in a classroom where I couldn't have notes, if that makes sense. Okay. So just giving you a little bit of tip, a little bit of a tip for how to be successful on the test. And ultimately that's the best advice that I can give you. Okay. So again, your test is a 90 minutes in duration. It's a little bit of true, false, a little bit of knowledge. You've got a case study where you're going to have to apply your management theories. And then another long answer question or application-based question where you have to apply your knowledge of like what 21st century workplace environments look like and like the changing nature of work and the dynamic new workplace. Again, this is all from the content of the course. Now, I wanted to point out here that it's really, really easy to tell if you're using ChatGPT or any other outside sources to write your test answers. So any evidence of this, I'm just not going to mark the test, and I will have to follow up with you about that. So how do you prevent this from happening? Again, all you have to do is use your own personal life examples and use examples from the course materials, okay? So like we watched the leadership dance lessons from Dancing Guy, connecting to what we learned from that video. You know, we talked about Daniel Pink and the managerial competencies, talking about what you learned from that, connecting to the course. I have every semester a couple of students that like, they will quote a management theory. And I'm like, we didn't even talk about that in the course. And you can just tell they've gone to Google to look up any random management theory. And it's not what we covered in the course. Maybe that management theory is true according to Google, but if we haven't covered it in our curriculum and you use that on a test, that's a huge red flag, right? So again, it comes back to just knowing the content of the course, being organized and applying that using your own life examples and examples we've discussed in the class together. Okay? So that's really the focus of what I'm mentioning here. Now, again, all of those slide decks have been available to you in the weekly agendas. So if you've made a big oops and you haven't been taking proper course notes, you've got your work cut out for you, but I do try to make things as user-friendly for making mistakes as possible. If you go under content, I know I've shown this to you before. I do keep and house the weekly agendas right here in this tab. So all of the weekly content is there. You will still have to go through it all to kind of slough out all that material, which is, again, why it's so important to take those notes as you go through. Because, again, if you've done that, all you have to do is review that material when it comes time for the tests and exams, okay? So that's that. That is your week. You've got the last lesson to take notes on. You've got your management theories assignment due at 3 p.m. on Thursday. You've got your unit test to write at any point this week, by obviously before Monday, October 30th at 8 a.m. And you've got your participation or your attendance activity for the week. Okay? If you have any questions or concerns, you know where to find me. Send me an email. Otherwise, I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you online.